is the manager of the service center. His name is Patrick Byers. He goes by Pat. He's a United States, and don't hold it against against him. He's a United States Army veteran. Yeah. But one thing that you absolutely going to be surprised about is he used to be part of the first order of the Purple Heart. Stopped doing the claim system. He used to run this region, and he was the director of the Northwest region of the whole state of the United States. The entire nation. And the core of what he did was quality assurance of claims, and of course, the training of the Order of the Purple Heart veteran service officers. With that, I'll turn it forward to you, sir, and I'm available. One thing, sorry, real quick. One thing, I have that stamp if you need for those of you who have been trying to get on board with OWBA in regards to Vet Corps and anything that has to do with that program. I have that stamp at the end of this presentation for you. And please silence your cell phones. And that's
thank you all for taking your time away from your office and coming over to our conference and having interest in this class. My name is Pat Byers. I am the former National Service Director of the Military Order of the Purple Heart before we closed down approximately 3 years ago. That encompassed running a service program in all the states in the United States. That includes Hawaii, Guam, and the upper one, Alaska. So we're going to do basically an overview. We're not, as Raphael said, we're not going to try to turn you into service officers. One of the things we're going to discuss is pension. If you've been around this business, you have to understand when you say pension, that is a 6-month class and it's just by itself. So we're going to give you an overview. That way, if you run across some veterans, you have some ideas in your head of, hey, some lights and bells and whistles may go off. How many of you all knew that the Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs actually even had a veteran service center? No, you did? I know you did. Okay, well, we do. And it's located in Olympia, Washington. And if you want to get in touch with us, or me, or Raphael, just call this 800. They handle the majority of the calls coming in the States when it deals with Veterans Affairs. Most of them are pretty nice. Some of them think we're Washington, D.C., because they saw Washington on the Google. And when they found out that it wasn't, not always good things happen coming into you here. Okay? So we're going to talk about life cycle of a claim. We go and we fill out an application for a veteran or a spouse. And we send it into the VA. What happens to it? We want to be interactive as much as we can. Does anyone know what happens to it? Okay, well, I'm going to tell you what happens to it. Because if you know, and especially if you're doing service officers' business, you know, veterans may come and say, I've called the VA 5 times, and none of them can give me a straight answer. Well, when you call the VA, first of all, you're calling public contact. You could be in the state of Washington. The call could be answered in Arizona, Guam, anywhere within the nation. And so basically they will do a look at your claim based on the veteran's claim number or social security number and just give you an overview. They can't give you any specifics about that frustrates veterans. But even service officers sometimes do not know when they actually do call directly to the VA and get in touch with the person that they want to, who they really need to talk to. This is because there's about 8 stages that the claim goes through. And if you're talking with someone that does not have that part that you want to know about their claim, they're just going to send you right back to public contact. And it becomes a vicious circle. Okay, we're done. questions on Saturday. So in our overview, we're going to talk about the claims process, the appeal process, and standard VA claims. Two types of disability claims that are generally filed. One is for compensation, the other one is for pension. We'll talk about the compensation. Compensation is paid to a veteran based off of any disabilities, injuries, illnesses that are a result of their service during active service. During active service. This is why you may deal with some veterans that basically have National Guard service and does not have any call-up service, cannot get any claim with the VA because those disabilities are a result of the National Guard or Army Reserve or whatever reserve service that they had. They would have to be called up, and then when they return back to command and control from active duty to the governor of their state, is at that time, any disabilities that arose during that period of call-up, they would be entitled to file a claim for compensation. The other one, pension, is basically done from a humanitarian point of view, which basically they say that a veteran should not have to have no money and have to be on the streets as a result of them serving. But they could have disabilities that are not a result of service. In order for them to do this humanitarian service, you have to meet certain guidelines, starting with the current annual rate that they are making is $14,753. That's annually. Okay? That's annually. That's at the poverty level, which is set by the Department of Census each year. Most veterans will say, I can't live off of that. This is a humanitarian benefit. Has nothing to do with the veteran service. So it's better than nothing. And as I've said to a lot of service officers, which is a different type of training, and I'll say it to you all, I surmise to you that if you had a veteran that had a need for money, and they only got $3 out of it, they take it in a heartbeat because it's better than nothing. Yes?
Would you say that most of the HVRP participants would qualify for that pension?
Depends on what their income is, but yes, they possibly could.
So it's definitely something to mention.
Absolutely. Or as we say, $1,229.42 a month. That's not a lot of money. Okay, so I'll clue you into something else. These are federal agencies that decide that they do now want to work together. That's just above what the average Social Security amount is. Since that is coming in, that is counted towards that. So if they're awarded pension, and let's just say they had $800 of income, how much would they get? They don't get this amount. They don't get the $1,229. They get the difference between their income and what the member, MAPR, national annual percentage rate. Okay? Now there's some things to drive the mapper up. One of those things could be out-of-pocket medical expenses, for which they are not reimbursed, and some of those can even be over the counter. They can have medical bills, ambulatory care, things like that. And that macro will go up, and then that difference basically becomes greater as a benefit to them in their pocket. But when you think about pension, always remember, it has nothing to do with service. It doesn't matter what disability they have. If it had something to do with service, we'd be looking at compensation. Yes.
Question. So for some of our clients, like Fast Track Illness, somebody knows, for SSVF, right? So those individuals go through that program, maybe those are temporary benefit. those funds count against them if they were receiving more time for it.
Yes, if it is considered income.
Okay.
If it's income, then it will count towards that number.
Well, and that's where I guess where I'm confused a little bit, is because it has to be defined as income, not as benefit, right?
That is correct. So if they're going to HBRP and you're giving them money to get out, to catch a Uber to a job interview,
Right.
or this, that, the other, then no, that's not income. Okay?
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes. There's some other stipulations. They need to have served at least 90 days on active duty with 1 day during a wartime period. They do not have to have been in the war. There just need to be a war that is going on. After September 1980, served at least two years of full period for which call. Now, there's a caveat to that. Veteran can still receive pension. For example, let's just say they got hurt during basic training or during their AIT training. They didn't complete their full term of service if they signed up for 4 years, but they were medically discharged because of something beyond their control. That they would be entitled to pension, because that would be considered the same as them completing their full term of service that they signed up for. Acceptable documents for character of discharge: honorable, general, and under honorable conditions. Any of those are acceptable for pension or for compensation. Under the honorable, bad conduct discharges, no. They can apply for a disability, a discharge upgrade for the character of service, but if they do not, they will not be entitled to either the compensation or the pension. Abortive benefits: dishonorable, absent without leave, AWOL, for 180 days or more, and they are gone that long. You know, I'm a Vietnam veteran. Back then, we used to call the MPs and our buddies because they give us $75 if we reported and told them where a AWOL person was. Okay, so we turn them in. Today, they don't even bother looking for them. They'll show up today. Too many cameras, too many tag monitors. They'll go and get in trouble somewhere else, and they'll eventually show up. The longer they're gone, the worse it is. Insanity: I did not jump over, and I have 3 asterisks on it, and I have it in red, and there's a reason for it. There is such a thing which is called an insanity claim, and I'll try and explain it to you. If you were my company commander, sir, and I just came back from, let's just call it the Gulf, and then you got into an argument, and I hit you, and you turned around and court-martialed me and threw me out of the service. If I could show through medical evidence that the reason why I performed that action was an insane moment and it's medically documented, then I would be able to file a claim with the VA, because that is an insanity claim. That's an insane act, and that is considered a medical condition from a psychological point of view. Will I get any money out of the VA? Absolutely not. But what that insane act, in this case being a psychological disability which happened during a period of service, does allow me to do is I will be able to basically get medical conditions or, treatment from a medical point of view and medication for that for the rest of my life. And when we start dealing with things like that, that's really important, because that could be the difference between a veteran that's basically hurting themselves or actually hurting someone else, their family. So if someone says, I have a bad conduct discharge, I have a dishonorable discharge, I was AWOL, okay, dig a little bit deeper, let's find out why. Because we may be able to support a insanity claim. Wartime service. This is the only ones that the VA recognizes. I tell you all what the laws, what the regulations, what the statutes basically state. That's the clear language in it. I do not basically agree with all of them. World War II, Korean conflict, the Vietnam era, and there's a modification in this. If you look at it and see 61 through 75 and 64 through 75. During this period, what we had here in the 61 prior to the war just really breaking out real bad, we had a lot of CIA people in there. We had a lot of military people in there from CID doing a lot of investigations and pre-ops prior to the war actually kicking off. Now they basically are going to combine them all into one and make, regardless of where you fell in 61 to 75. Gulf War, August 2nd, 1990 until the current time, even though most of our brothers and sisters of arms have returned to the United States, Congress still has not put an end date to that war.
So it's still an active war.
It is still considered an active war.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Okay? So until they give us that, then we just don't know.
But that basically protects everyone because they
There
have
is a
served
level
for one day
protection
during
there.
a time of war.
Absolutely.
So anyone that's joined since 1990 is covered.
Absolutely. So basically, they can send someone there right now, let's just say on a humanitarian or on a peacekeeping thing, a whole bunch of dentists to provide dental care, give COVID-19 shots, and something happens to them, that happens during the period of war. Before I go on, do we have any other questions?
On the insanity claim, Treasurer, would that be a situation where you might encourage that person to seek
They should always do that first. This would be the last case, okay? But you asked about it. I do what I tell my service officers to do it, okay? If they've got a background and discharge, dishonorable, okay? Or if they win AWOL, ask them what? See if they'll share that with me. And that will at least open the road at the Y. Well, I probably need to lean a little bit more this way or start going down this road. But they can certainly do that now. Discharge upgrades aren't the easiest in the world, but there's another thing that they have too, which is called a VA review board, where they can look at specific disabilities, and in those disabilities, they can say, okay, you've got this right here, but we'll approve for you to be able to file for compensation for this particular disability. Okay, and there is really no one rule that fits that, in so much as we have to look at the cases and basis surrounding each individual veteran. Did that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I'm sorry. So
Yes.
what is Afghanistan and Iraq? Is that because
Yes.
it's still considered Gulf War?
That is correct. So we had OIF, OEF, and a whole bunch of freedoms and everything else. It started as the Gulf War in 1990. Okay, and all they basically did was change the title of the actual campaign. That's what went through.
Yeah, that was my question. Does the campaign matter?
Yes,
It does?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, so if you get some people early on in the Gulf War leading, you may find that there may be other entitlements available to certain veterans simply because they were an OIF, OEF.
So it's not necessarily going to be labeled G1, it would be labeled
Correct. So we just, the title is Gulf War. And it encompasses all the way way up to somebody, right? So when we look at compensation, there's a couple of things that need to exist. I was at the Purple Heart for about 2 decades. And I had to make a quarterly meeting at OGC, which is the Office of General Counsel in DC, VA Central Office, and also we had an office in the BVA, which is the Board of Veterans Appeals. And we set up and we write these legal briefs for the veteran law judges. We would talk with other attorneys, we would talk with other veteran service organizations, and I want you all to get a grasp of this. And what we found out that approximately 87% of those claims sitting at the Board of Veterans Appeals did not meet the requirements of what we're getting ready to talk about, which basically means those claims were frivolous, dead from the time that claim was taken, generally by the service officer or the veteran himself or herself to sit down and wrote it. And now they're sitting up here. Now, there's one thing about when it gets to the Board of Appeals. Generally, that claim has been denied at least 4 times, sometimes more. At least 4 times for the same reason. And if you think you can show up and just shove it down, a veteran law judge wrote, it's not going to work. Well, let's talk first. What type of claims are available? Direct service connection. Fell off of into the foxhole, I broke my arm. That's a direct service connection. Aggravation. I'll do that one last because this is the most up. Secondary complications of a primary service connected disability. I'll use the knees for that. As also in that fall, I hurt my left knee. Over a period of time, because of pain and everything else, I started lifting a little more to the right side so as to keep the pressure off of that. So now this one right here basically got overworked, and now I have a problem with that. Even though service had nothing to do with it, it did have to do with the left knee, and so I would be looking at secondary service connection of the right knee due to the service-connected left knee. So there's another thing. There's a whole bunch of things that comes under secondary service. One of them would be medications. Okay? If you're taking medications, and those medications keep you from being able to drive to work on a consistent basis, or it creates migraines or headaches or any other complications, then medications can be a secondary service connection. You all get that. 1151, or vote rehab. We'll do the 1151. That's the title code. Basically, what that is a tort claim. Okay?
Is it what claim?
Tort. Basically, you are going to sue the Department of Veterans Affairs because you got hurt while you were in their care. Most people just think of the hospitals. There's other things too. Vote rehab. If you're in any program for which the VA has you revoked or directed you to go to, and you hurt yourself, then those can also be treated as a claim for service connection compensation. For example, if I tell you, ma'am, you filed a claim, we received it, and we want you to go to your CMP, compensation and pension evaluation, and on the way you get hurt, you were directed to go there by the VA. Okay? So any care that you're in there, when you're under the direct care of the VA, and if you get hurt during that time frame, that will be 1151 or vote rehab. Presumptive. Anyone want to do that one for me? Okay, presumptive claims means that the VA will concede if you come down with a disability and you meet the parameters VA will concede that the only way you could have received that disability would be because of the exposure. The first one that generally pops up is Surfside Agent Orange, okay?
So what happened with you now is,
They have some presumptives, okay? Gulf War has some presumptives. Agent Orange has a lot of presumptives, and they just added 3 more to the list. I think it's now up to about 18. So, for example, if a veteran can show burden of proof of ground, boots on ground within the Republic of Vietnam, and they get diagnosed with any of those disabilities, that's a presumptive claim. Okay, all they have to show is they have a diagnosis for it, and basically that they were in the Republic of Vietnam. Not their unit, because a lot of units went there, and they only sent so many people there. Their unit sent in Thailand as a reserve force, then that doesn't count. Then you have to show the burden that you had boots on the ground with it. If that, the VA will not fight it. Even if your family has a history of diabetes or any other disabilities, the VA has to concede to say you have that because you were exposed to the toxin. Aggravation. It's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites simply because I hear people come in, I want to file a claim for my right knee condition. Okay? If you go back to the 60s, to the 70s, and you got like torn meniscus or any of those other things that happened from sports, all you got out of it, if you were lucky, was a permanent limp for the rest of your life. Medical technology has advanced, and now we receive people in the service these days that have had 5 or 6 of those surgeries, and their actual joints are better than what it was before they got injured. Okay? Now they come in and say, I want to file a claim for my right knee because I fell on PT and it messed my knee up. They don't understand why the claim is denied. Anyone want to try a reason why it was denied?
Evidence?
No. But we're going to get to that because the veteran said they wanted to basically file a claim for aggravation because of their service-connected knee. Your knee was messed up when you came here. There's no way you're going to be able to blame that on the government. Okay? You already had a knee condition when you came in. So what do they call that? They call that aggravation. And what they do under aggravation is they will look up and they want to see what was the condition of your, and think pension here, knee when you came in. Because you meet the requirements of presumptive of soundness when the Army or whatever branch of service is, you, even with that disability, are able to do the job that the service took you to do. So they'll look and see what it was. Let's just say it's 30%. And you're going in now, and they say your disability of your knee is now 50%. What do you get? Then pension. You get the difference. 20%. Right? But you'll never be able to file for service connection for something that pre-existed prior to you coming into service. You can file for aggravation, which basically says, even though we have this disability based on your job and all of the stuff that the services had you do, caused it to generate at a faster pace than what it would have had you not been in the service. Yes, sir.
Are there aggravation claims for mental health?
Absolutely. Okay. So I'm not going to get too far off of this, but I'll give you an example of if someone comes in and wants to file an aggravation claim. This is the road that you want to set them down. If you're a service officer, you should be able to get a hold of the MEPS records, which are the records of the physical when the veteran came in. If it does not have in there the degree of severity in that, send the veteran to the doctor and find out, okay, this is the time the VA likes to get high disability. If you don't, then the VA is allowed to adjudicate that claim based off of the newest medical evidence. So if you go there and they say the knee is 70%, and just looking at x-rays, MRIs, they can put in there that it was 50% or 70% when you came in, which equals 0. So the veteran needs to have something on their side to show what the disability was when they came in service. If they don't, let the VA make that decision for them. Send them to the doctor and let them go and get some number put in there before you leave it open for the VA to fill it in. I talked to you about the Board of Veterans Appeals. 3 things. The veteran must have all 3 in order to establish service connection for compensation. Not 1 of 3, 2 of 3. And this is what we were talking about at the board of those claims not meeting the requirements that have been denied. First, you have to have an activity or event that happened during a period of active duty service. Second of all, you must be diagnosed with a disability, injury, illness, or disease that is chronic in nature. And the third thing that must happen, a nexus or link, you must be able to link this disability diagnosis back to that activity in the service. If you miss any of those, the claim is denied because it did not meet the 3 elements required to start to establish service.
I'm sorry, can you tell me what nexus means again?
Link,
Huh?
link, like a chain link.
Oh, okay.
Okay? You have to be able to link the 2 together, but you have to have all 3 of them.
Okay.
Number 2 being the most important, diagnosis. So I'm going to go back to my right knee and say, on PT, I hurt my leg. I see your hand, I'll get you.
Oh, no problem.
And I go over to sick call and they give me, you as a service, you know what they gave you, right?
Ranger candy.
Right. Big orange or white pills. And I took those, and 2 days later I went on PT, and it still hurt me. After that, go back to sick call, they give me what? More Motrin. My whole dress was covered with nothing but Motrin. Okay? And so, now we're going into the 2nd week, and it's still hurting. I go back to sick call, and sorry, I'm going over a sick call. He goes in and tries to put me on a guilt trip. You're abusing the sick call policy. Every time that you are gone, someone else has to pick up your workload. So I surmise, okay, I'm young, I'm getting out of the service, okay, and it'll get well because I've been hurt before, and it always did. I get out of service, I go feet now. I just left the service. I just changed employers. I still have the staples and requirements of everyone else in life. I need 3 hops in the car. I have a family I have to take care of. I need gasoline to get there. I'm going to get that stuff all taken care of because the service gave that to me for all 4 years. Now they just pulled the rug from up under my foot. So I get that all set up, and 2 years later, I go over to the VA. I'd like to file a claim for my knee. It's in my medical records, and the key words I want you to understand is just because something's in a veteran service record does not automatically entitle to them for service connection compensation from the Department of Veterans Affairs. File my claim, it comes back as denied. Why did they deny my claim? I have a diagnosis. It's in my service medical records.
No follow-up?
Which one?
No follow-up?
No. So let's go and let's look at this one right here again. Diagnosis of an inbreed illness, disability, or disease that is chronic in nature. Even service officers leave it out. Okay. Doctor opined that the disability that I actually have is more episodic, and so much as being chronic, which basically means recurring and never going to go away. So now I have to get medical evidence to try to substantiate that. Okay, you had a question.
So those enrolled in service academies or ROTC programs and they sustain an injury before they're officially commissioned, do those injuries, are they considered pre-existing or are they considered?
If it was before their term of service, yes.
So nothing until they raise their hand and are officially
Absolutely.
commissioned.
Okay,
So
because until that happens, they are not factually.
yeah, I just had a girlfriend whose kid doing ultimate frisbee during their ROTC thing like blew out his knee and everything. So
We used to have things like buddy plans, and the services right after Vietnam was really trying to get a lot of people in, so they offered things like, probably even remember the name, but, and maybe it was Raphael, where you could sign up and stay at home for a whole year, okay, before you physically had a report. Was it? Delayed entry program. And if they went and hurt themselves before, they're not in the service yet until they show up to MEPS, raise their hand, and all the good stuff goes with. So you understand, it must be chronic in nature. Life cycle of a VA claim, 8 distinct steps in most claims for disability follows. You have to submit the claim to the local VSO, CVSO, that's the County Veteran Service Officer, through the VA Regional Office or through VA.gov. So first thing the VA does is they will receive your claim, take anywhere from 30 to 45 days to upload the claim into the system. A lot of times it's even faster, sometimes we see it within 2 weeks. They may have received it, it only takes 10 seconds to get it into the VA, whether or not it takes that long to process it. After that, it'll go under review where it's assigned to a VSR, Veterans Rating Specialist, and this is the person right there responsible to make sure that all elements of the claims are there. The applications, formal applications are signed, boarding or scheduling, CMP evaluations or contract evaluations for what the veteran basically said. If additional evidence is needed, then if no other additional information is needed, they can actually go and approve it. Right then and there, move to step 5 to the RPSR. We'll see that in a minute. So the VSR will request evidence from required sources. VA's duty to assist, NPRC, National Personnel Records Center, where they will go and get a copy of the veteran's official file. That's in archives, Department of Defense facilities, VAMC facilities, VA medical centers. Now, this is the veteran's duty. Any late statements, buddy statements, okay? Private medical records, any evidence may have or think is important to their claim. The private medical records are in red up there and underlined, and there's a reason for that. If the veteran has basically private medical records, you need to instruct them to go and get them. Okay, because we use a fully developed claim process, and basically, if you look at these facilities here, these are all federal facilities. That's the VA's only duty to assist us in veterans to go get any evidence that's in federal facilities. If the veteran sets up and basically files or sends plans, it's a VA form 21P 4142, which is authorization for them to go and get private medical records. The VA will do that, but they will dump the claim from a fully developed claim process, and it will become what's called a conventional claim. Because the purpose of this is that everything included in that packet, the VA should be able to make a decision on that. What's the difference? I don't know, maybe within 8 or 9 months, you might be able to get a decision there. If it goes to a conventional one, 8 months to 2 years. Because the VA has to go out and get things, and whenever they do, they have a duty to assist the veteran, and they've got to let these certain time frames pass before they can move further on the claim. The CMP schedules, review of evidence. They determine if a decision can be made. If more evidence is needed, your claim can go back to gathering evidence. Decision preparation. VSR routes the claim to RVSR for review. Pending decision approval. They make a decision on a final award after reviewing all of the evidence. At this point, if more evidence is required, the claim will be sent back for evidence. And that will be deferred for further action. So the VA does some good things with the claims. Let's say they have 8 issues on there. Under those 8 issues, if they made a decision of 5, they can defer those last 3 and just send an award letter to the veterans so that they can start receiving their money as soon as possible instead of waiting for them to finish those 3 items. When they actually do that, and they answer those last 3, and it'll be listed on the award letter, so this, and this has been deferred. Then they will send the veteran another award letter which shows them what the decision is on the 3 that were deferred. After deciding the claim, a senior VSR will basically review the claim. This is basically called the promulgation phase. It gets looked at by the service center manager who has to pencil with every claim that's coming out of it. And then from there to go to admin to get a letter and send it there. A lot of veterans may call us and say, hey, what's the status of my claim? And we will never ever tell them what the status of their claim is. What we may tell them is that you should be receiving a letter within 30 days as soon as you get it, give me a call. And there's a reason for us not doing that. The reason why we don't do it is once we go, until the veteran, the VA sends out this administrative letter, the VA has the authority and the right to change the rating based off of an error. When seeing his and her cars, his and her this, his and her that, big old tires for the cars, and we told them you were getting 80%, and finally the letter shows up, and it's only 20%. Okay? We have to accept, our culpability in doing it, so we may not tell them. We will tell them you will get a letter within 30 days, give us a call, and we'll go over it. Claim is complete. The VA sends the packet by mail, and it basically shows up in the veterans thing. If they're not happy with the rating, it tells them what they can do, which is to appeal. So, in a nutshell, those are the steps it goes through. If you lived in the state of Washington and you filed a claim in the past, that claim will go to Seattle, which is the location of our VA regional office. And likewise throughout the other states. No longer. Now we have what's called a national work queue. All the claims go into Janesville, Wisconsin, and they go into a national work queue. A lot of times veterans just can't grasp this concept of it. I'm going to go to Seattle VA regional office, and I'm going to get them, you're wasting your time, the claim's not even there. So based on the age and nature of the claim in that work queue, what will end up happening is the next VA employee that works on claims that has the next work product will go to that work queue and pull that claim. And it could be someone in Alabama or Tennessee or Virginia or any of the other regional offices. They are the ones that's working on that claim. So you can go to Seattle all you want to and jump up and down. They don't even have your claim. Okay? And if you ask them what is the status of it, they will not be able to see it in its entirety or be able to tell you what the stopgap is. What is the problem here is when you can't do that, they will transfer you to public contact. And so now that revolving will, someone in need from Ethiopia, since we all don't know. How long does it take? Depends on the type of claim file, complexity of your disabilities or disabilities, the number of disabilities filed, and what available evidence is. Okay? Sometimes they may simple service medical records, and the archive says we don't have them. Okay? That's one example. That's going to slow it down while we try to find out what happened to this veterans service medical record. It lost. Veteran has 1 year from the date of that decision to make an appeal if they don't like the award by law. Not just because I think of this, there's no medical evidence to substantiate that. They have 3 days for which they can basically use for that. First one is the date of the award letter. Well, let me put it this way as it comes off of the table. The award narrative, and it may not basically get to admin for 4 more days to do the award letter, and then it may not be mailed for another 4 days, so they can use any of those 3 days to their advantage of satisfying this 1 year obligation. If they're going to appeal it, we have a new process which is called AMA, Appeals Modernization Act. We don't like it, but it's what the VA has. They did have legacy appeals, which is the old system. Under the old system, the VA got them to opt and tried to gave the veterans opportunity to opt into it. Our suggestion was don't opt into it. It'll take a little more time, but you have a better chance in being able to do this because you'll see this AMA in a minute. Under AMA, you have what's called a supplemental claim line. In order to do, you have to choose one of these lines right here in your appeals. In the supplemental, basically, as you can see, you have to submit new and relevant information. Otherwise, they'll just flat out reject it. Okay, you have to show new and relevant. Now, what's scary about this is a supplemental claim form is also the same form that you use to basically reopen the claim that was previously denied and has passed this adjudicated period. In order to reopen a claim requires you to have no material evidence, and those things are just too close and too many people get the two mixed up. Okay, but for appeals, it has to have additional evidence. It must be new and relevant. If they choose a higher level review, you can't add anything to it. That means the VA actually flat out made an error, and all the evidence of record is there that will provide a grant based on the regulations or the statutes for what surrounds that disability. And the last thing, you can appeal to the board. That's the last lane. And that's got 3 different things that you can do. I would suggest if a veteran wants to appeal directly to the board, they need to be with an accredited service officer, they need to be with an independent contractor, or they need to have an attorney and not go to the board or suggest to the veteran that they go to the veteran law judge without some form of representation on this. Okay? Does everyone know what an independent contractor is? Okay? If you don't know, they perform the same functions as an attorney. Okay? They just don't have a legal degree. But the VA has certain requirements that they have to meet. That's an independent contractor. Questions? Yes.
So, I'm a little bit confused on this. So if a veteran files a claim and it's denied, and they do not appeal it within that year, does that mean that
That
claim
decision
is dead?
becomes final.
So they can't file a new claim?
They can reopen it.
Okay.
If they reopen it and subsequently get it approved, they will lose their effective date of when they first filed. Okay. Yes.
Let's say they went to the appeal, the board, and it was denied. Can they ever reapply for that? Like, try to have it reapplied after a year?
Absolutely. So, similar to her question, but two things that not all claims coming out of the Board of Veterans Appeals has further appellate rights. Some of them do. It's called CAVC, Court of Appeals of Veterans Claims, which is commensurate with what we call the Supreme Court, okay, for veterans. But not all claims have that. So once it becomes, we call it fully adjudicated, they can always reopen a claim that was previously denied. Okay, using the same form of supplemental claim, and this is called a reopened claim.
So then after that year, it would just restart the process?
Just started all over again.
Fully
Okay?
claim, then if they're denied again, then supplemental, then higher level.
So it just starts all over. You got to go through the whole process. But the key is, if they had had all of the evidence there when they did the first time around, because once that decision, let's put it this way, we filed the claim the first time. Today, what's the day? April, August? Yeah. My name's Melvin, okay, and I work in office space, okay, so payday means absolutely nothing to me. I do have a red stapler. So, if we file it today, and we appeal it, and we keep appealing it as long as they're available, if we subsequently get it approved, it is retroactively payable back to the date that we originally filed that claim. If it becomes finally adjudicated, and then we reopen it, now the effective date of payment is not all the way back there. The effective date of payment is when we reopen the claim. So it can end up costing the veteran 3, 4, 5, sometimes longer years of actual retroactive pay. Any other questions?
Yeah, one more, real quick.
Sure.
So earlier you mentioned that sometimes veterans' medical records are false, or they can't be tracked down. What does a veteran do in that situation?
First of all, they can try and find out. One of the biggest things I know is like the records, when the VA adjudicates a claim, they are basically required to get a copy of the veteran service record. They send to NPRC, they'll get the records, they'll start work on a veteran's claim, never send them back. They're sitting right there in the VA regional office. Seattle uses a place which is called FARS, which is a Federal Record Keeping Building, and talk to your regional office, they probably have your one. Now we talk about ones that are factually lost, or some that were burned in the fire in 1973, okay? They have a way for veterans to go through and basically rebuild their medical data, okay? And the VA pretty much has to stomach about 80% of what the veteran said, okay? Because just like the veteran, well, the VA doesn't have any evidence that says contrary to what the veteran said also.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So and it's not about the pills, maybe I'm mixing the two up, but you had mentioned something about you have a bad knee, everything's done, you get out, and 3 years later, you notice your other knee is hurting you really bad. Is that the secondary? Would you?
Well, no, that's not secondary, but it could be. It generally is the primary one. You see, because of that second element of establishing service connection. And you've got to establish that for every disability list of that claim. Okay, so with that being said, I don't have a disability that is chronic in nature. Because if it hurt, what would I have done?
Seen a
Went to the
doctor.
doctor, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't. I went to get a job to take it. The VA knows this. This is they got you in the trap like you would.
But if somebody, say somebody does, can they go and file again? Can they say, oh, now I know this knee is sore because or it's bad, I've been
Yes.
seeing a doc for it.
You can reopen a claim
Okay,
a billion times.
okay.
Okay, you're just going to be starting all over again, and you basically end up losing a whole bunch of money because you're losing your effective date with it also. Okay. Any other questions? Good. These are the general forms that we use, the 966, which is the IGF, formal application for compensation, the 526, the 527 for pension. And if you go to this website, because you can look up this PowerPoint and you click on that link, it'll take you right to the VA section of forms. You can put the form number in, or you can actually even use keywords. Hit the slide smile. That's sort of taking a picture of it. Okay. Resources, same thing there. Whole bunch of resources. If you go to the actual PowerPoint, which you can get by clicking on that Q code, and it'll bring it up, and you can just click on that straight from your computer, and it'll take you there. Okay. Let's talk about DIC. Dependents indemnity compensation. If you're a surviving spouse, child, or parent of a service member who died on active duty, the surviving spouse or the children of that surviving spouse may be entitled to compensation for the rest of their lives. Same with parents. We're not going to talk about parents because when a person dies on active duty, that's generally handled by the Casualty Assistance Office, all the installations, and we'll never see those benefits. But we'll talk about the ones we do see. So we heard about the PAC. And everyone wants to know about the PAC, but there is not a lot of information out there, but I'm going to share with you what I do know about the PAC. Finished? Okay. If you think you're eligible for DIC under the PAC Act, you can submit a new application. Okay? And the full name of that law, the PAC Act is Sergeant First Class Eve Robinson, honoring our promise to address comprehensive toxins. Okay? Act of 2022. If your claim was denied in the past, and the VA thinks you may be eligible now, they will try to contact you. Okay? They may be able to reevaluate your claim, but you don't have to wait for that. If you had a claim that was in the past denied because of these toxic benefits within the PAC Act, get with a service officer and just go and file a claim now. You don't have to wait for the VA to reach out to you. Yes, sir.
So I had a cousin that was in the Army, he was in toxic waste disposal. And the military kept sending letters, come see us, and he said, bullshit, I've been in the Army, kept throwing them away. He got really, really sick, and he died in about 5 grams. Now, I don't know if his children even know about this. Is there a deadline, or how can you prove that he's still on it, that's what he died from?
Okay, so this is what I'm going to do with you, and anyone else that has interest in that. I'm going to stay when this is over.
Okay.
We're for a whole hour. 59 minutes, okay? Maybe halfway. And we can talk about that also because it will be time consuming and there's a lot of variables there. But you don't have to wait for the VA. You can go on and if you believe that your claim was denied because of prior to the PAC Act and it now means that it's going to file. Current DIC rates for a surviving spouse is $1436.65 per month, and that will go on for the rest of their life.
Does that shift or move based on the annual MI, or is that just that number?
It's a flat rate.
Okay.
Okay, there's another rate, looks like one of the old military pay charts, E3/2, but it's only like 2 or 3 of those survivors left in there. That actually, everyone's today pretty much is receiving this flat rate. And there are additional amounts that goes with this. Additional entitlements, they can have gold star license plate, presidential memorial certificates, dependents education benefits, okay, champion, possibly, additional amounts may be added to the basic rate. Now, I ask people all the time, as well, I would tell them, well, my service officers, make sure you talk about this, because they don't know that. They're just getting the money and move on, and there's stuff out here. And especially this. It says, what if they ask me? Because they do. What am I going to go to school for? I'm 73 years old. Okay? And I know when I was a service officer many, many years ago, I told them, go take a class in income tax. Go take a class in travel and see if you can do it better than me. But I was serious about the income tax. Okay? Because I, as a volunteer, go to Fort Lewis and Fort every year at income tax time and do people's income taxes. So the young soldier seller, airmen, and Marines that's sitting out there are not being charged $300+, okay, from H&R Block and some of the other ones to get back $50, okay? So, whatever, but these are additional things. Additional amounts may be added to the basic rate. And these are this. If the veteran was fully disabled, 100% or through individual unemployability, and for 8 years prior to the veteran dying, you add $305.28 to the basic rate. If the veteran, the surviving spouse, it requires 8 attendants. And another $356.16 to the award. If you can't leave your house because you are housebound, add $166.85. This has bothered me from day one. I said the VA really got this one backwards. Okay. It's that they believe 8 attendants requires more than not being able to leave the house. But the VA, even for veterans requirement, 8 attendants is the greater of the 2 benefits between 8 attendants or housebound. And then we get down here to transitional benefits, $306 for the first 2 years. That means that there are children, they can get this transitional one where they add another $306 to it, and after 2 years it just falls off the award. And then they end up getting monthly, whatever they get. If the survivor is just not a good person and apportionment comes in because the VA has always said that they will not hold children hostage because of something that a spouse or a veteran did, they can file for apportionment. At least the children can get $356.16 per month, which is better than nothing. So when someone comes in, because we have a whole bunch of women's veterans groups, and I think that's a great thing. They need someone to talk to and tell them out there, my amount is wrong. I am my best friend. She gets this and I get this. VA made a mistake. Or maybe she's just getting the flat rate amount. The veteran was not 100%, which is why I heard it's $300 more, or they require 8 attendants. So their payment can actually be well over $2,000 a month, actually, for the rest of their life. So, are you eligible for DIC as a surviving spouse? One of these must be true. You live with the veteran or service member without a break until their death. And if you're separated, you weren't at fault for the separation. So the VA also does some things correct in humanitarian ways, okay? Cohabitation is a requirement, but cohabitation will be overlooked by the VA. Let's just say we have a veteran that has a psychological condition, and the spouse should not have to stay in the household with them when they're constantly being beaten, demeaned, or this, that, and the other, or possibly even killed. Okay? So, if they, or you have to ask the cohabitation, if they say, no, we don't live together, you need to ask why. Because if it meets within those parameters, it's easy for us to get around the VA to be able to show why they did not cohabitate. And then the other thing, other than having to be married, okay, which always comes up, common law, okay? Where you walk on tell me about common law. I just want to hear one, not you. Okay, Washington State is not a common law state. The closest one is Oregon. So if they say, yeah, common law.
Washington is not?
Washington, no. No, Washington State is not a common law state. Closest is Oregon.
What?
Okay? So when they tell you the story, I have a common law marriage, we got married down in Tacoma. Not a good day for it. Right. Okay? And one of these must be true. You married a veteran or service member within 15 years of their discharge, and you were married to the veteran or service member at least 1 year, or a child was born. If a child was born to that marriage, there is no time limit. If you remarried, you can receive or continue to receive compensation if one of these describes you. There's a court case that was called Sharp African versus the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, where basically if a surviving spouse got remarried after the veteran died, they weren't entitled to any of this. The results of that court case basically was a partial repeal, where they put on there and says, okay, we'll let you do it as long as you're age 57 and a half years old. You know what? I tried that. It just doesn't make any sense. This says now become a full repeal, okay, that a survivor can now get this benefit even if they remarry, as long as on or after 2003 and were 57 years age or older, or you remarried after 2021, and that's the change in the law last year. They dropped it down to 55. Okay? But none of this, no, don't go get married. That's your personal choice. Or VA shouldn't have any say in it. I'll be the first to tell you. It's their life, and they should have a right to live.
Well, it's just like they lose their TRICARE and they never get it back. And a lot of them don't know that.
Yeah. So, you need to provide with your claim evidence that shows that your scripture is true. The IC is pretty simple. The veteran died initially as a result of something that they were service connected for, or two, it materially contributed to the death. Okay? So they were service connected for a heart condition due to exposure to herbicide agent orange, and they died of a heart or cardiovascular condition or ischemic heart disease, they will automatically be entitled to it. It's that simple. They died of something that they were service connected for. Okay? The other part, contributing factor. I saw you and I'll get you in a minute. One of them would be, let's just say the veteran died and they weren't service connected for it. Okay? But they were service connected for, let's just say, a psychological condition because it creates many problems. And the person had to take a third or fourth level form of treatment because the surgery that they wanted to give them would interfere with the psychotropic drugs that they are taking or medications. Okay, that contributed to that veteran's death. Okay? Let me take care of it. Yes, ma'am.
So this is, the DIC is different from the survivor's benefit that the veteran
Survivor's
pays?
pension?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
The IC is compensation, so it deals directly with that. Okay? We're gonna talk about the pension in a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay? Evidence that the service member died while on active duty, that would be for the parent, active duty training, inactive duty. The veteran died as a result of a service-connected injury, illness, or the veteran didn't die from a service-connected disability, or was eligible to receive compensation. So this is very key. Most people say, well, I think, you know, we have a lot of proud veterans. They won't go to the VA. That's their choice. We can tell them or try to get them to understand it may be in your best interest, because we also need to take care of your spouse and your family when you're gone. But if you don't go, that is the veteran's choice, file a claim. However, it is not a requirement that a veteran file a claim for DIC prior to death. Your onus of responsibility is only to show that service caused this caused the death, whether the veteran filed the claim for it or not. It's a longer road, but very doable, very easy. So having did that, that's basically the easiest way to get it. The veteran died as a result of something that was service connected for, or it materially contributed to the death. There's another way to get it. And this is for our veterans, what we call totally disabled. You may hear veterans say permanent and total. Okay? There's no permanency and a VA rating based off of it being permanent as we know it from the VA. So, here's one way. This is a 100% or receiving benefits at the 100% rate through individual unemployability, either of them or other. If the veteran was service connected for 10 years at 100% to include individual unemployability, doesn't matter what the veteran does. They're entitled to DSC.
So if a veteran is retired, but on their card it says PDR, what does that mean?
We'll come back to that, okay?
Okay.
Okay, because that right there, now we're talking the military ID card or the VA ID card?
Military ID.
Yes, that's a different thing, and we'll touch it in just a minute.
Okay.
So if the veteran was 10 years before their death at 100% benefits, for 10 years, they're entitled to it. If they left the service within the last 5 years and they were 100%, they're automatically survivors, automatically entitled to it. And if the veteran was 100% after September 30th, 1999, and is for 1 year, and was a former prisoner of war, survivors are automatically entitled to it. It doesn't matter what they got in any of those three scenarios. It doesn't have to be service connected. This is a rating based on them being permanent and total. Surviving child may be eligible if you meet those requirements. All of those must be true. They can't be married. They can't be on the spouse's compensation. So when we say a surviving child, we are not talking the dependents. Some of those are dependents. The spouse, they will be on the spouse's board. But if they're 18 to 23, they are an adult and in school, then they have to file their own claim. But 17 and below, then the surviving spouse will file for, they will be a part of her or his board. Okay, because they legally can't file a claim. Okay, remember the additional amounts that we put on there for each child, $300 some per child. Okay. And all these must be true. They're not married. They're not included on the spouse's compensation award under the age of 18 or under the age of 23, okay, if they're in school. If you were adopted out of the veteran of service member's family, we ain't considered that to basically fulfill the same role as a bylaw. We're not going to go, we'll look through it, but we're not going to talk about it much because the casualty assistance officer handles that when they die on active duty. So to your question, this is when the veteran leaves the service to retirement. There's a program which is called SPP. Has anyone heard of that? That's Survivors Benefit Program. Now, you used to could not, up until about 2 years ago, receive one or you'd have to make an election. You'd have to take the SPP or the DIC. They finally won that court case a couple of years ago, but they phased in how much of the SPP you can receive. As we talk today, that amount is 99%. So now, if they can get SPP and DIC at the same time, prior to that, you couldn't get a vote. And most people would take the one that gave up the greatest monetary benefit. Okay. So that's what you're looking at on there, SPP. Okay?
Thank you.
It's not a flat rate. When you buy SPP, when you leave the service, you buy in percentage chunks. Okay? Generally, the lower rank, they would take the lower amount, otherwise it wouldn't be enough left in there for them to retire on and be able to live on. Okay? The higher ranks will buy a higher percentage. Okay? So that's pretty much the way it works. They also refined that it used to be when veterans were leaving the service, I don't want SPP. I can get an insurance policy that will pay me 10 times the amount for a lot less money. Very true. Very true. And whether or not G.I. Joe or G.I. Jane actually goes out and buys that policy is when the problem starts. Okay? And you can't wait till they have cancer to go out and buy it because no one's going to insure them for a respectable amount of money. And then they show up. So Congress got tired of hearing that. We serve too. There's nothing for us. I can't get nothing from the VA, so what do? So they changed the rules that says service members can no longer turn down SPP. Only the spouse can. So when they're out processing and they're walking down the hallway to out process, if the veteran is coming down there by themselves, okay, then they know right then and there you're taking SPP because you can't turn it down anymore.
You have to have a notarized copy
The
with the
spouse is the only one that can turn it down. That way when they raise their hand and their issues with Congress about not having anything, yeah, you turn this down. Sir, you turn this down. We're off.
What about spouses prior to that being enacted? When the
So-
veteran didn't elect benefit?
That's actually a good question, but no. Okay? No. Now, you can't get back into SPP. You can remarry and get back into SPP. But you have to do what's called a payoff amount, which basically means whatever your SPP would have been each month from the time you retired up to the current date. Yeah, if you want to write that check, yeah, you give that to SPP. So, yeah, absolutely. Okay, but the SPP is an annuity. And they have what's called paid for life, which means once payments have been made on SPP for 360 consecutive months, you are paid for life. You still have annuity, you just don't have to pay anymore. How long is that?
30 years.
Like a school teacher.
30 years.
Bingo, 30 years. 30 consecutive payments, okay? And you're paid for life. You still, the survivor will still get the annuity, but they don't have to pay for payments. this is really a no-brainer as far as surviving veterans that a service member died from something on active duty, like that on active duty, it would be horrible to get around that with it. So the casualty assistance right there, officer on the installation takes that, and everything. So how do we apply for it? Help of a VA accredited service officer. You can apply online through VA, via VA Quick Submit. You can mail it using these forms, 213534 for surviving spouse with or without minor children, the 534 Alpha for surviving children, and the 535 for surviving parent. And you can mail to the Department of Veterans Affairs, so you can actually fill out those applications yourself, and you can take them in person to the closest VA regional office. In our case, Seattle. There was a time we could turn them into the VAMC at the medical facility, but they need to go to the regional office. When you try to go online to file it, do the quick submit, you're going to have one of these logons to be able to get in there. VS logon, ID me, DOD CAT card, login.gov, a VA PIV card, or through my HealthNet, my health event. So as people know about events, right? Most of the veterans end up doing this, and they can check all this stuff, and so they already have a logo. What questions do we have? Yes.
I just need a little clarity
Okay.
about the number of years eligibility thing, because I was just, if I read it right, then I don't qualify. If I read it wrong, then I qualify for a DIC. So I need to know whether I read it right or not.
Okay. Let me ask you the question if you like, or we can talk about it outside because I'm not this person.
No, it's
You just want to know about the 10?
because
It
what
has to
happened.
be 100% for 10 years.
No, that's not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at, he was discharged, he got a medical discharge from Vietnam in 1967 or 68. And we got married 18 years
That's
later.
all, because that's personal, we can talk right after the class. Okay?
So the difference between 15 years and 18 years, is that what that meant or not? No, okay. That's why I was confused.
You had a question?
Yeah, at any point is DIC income-based?
Pardon me?
Income-based.
Is it income-based?
Taxes will go up.
No money's coming from the VA, it's ever taxable.
No.
It's income-based.
Do you have to like make a certain amount in order to apply? So let's say you're not applying for yourself, but you're applying for the child. Because on there it does ask for the caretaker's income when you apply for it. So why would they ask that?
No, there's, if it's compensation, any of the income doesn't count, that counts for death pension. Okay?
Okay.
Yes.
So, veteran is physical service with this physical disability, and let's say it's 100%. But then they develop comorbid conditions that are directly linked to that. Should they file additional claims on the additional conditions, or how would that impact that?
We're talking the veteran still alive?
Sure.
Yes, so anytime the veteran has a disability to which they can relate to service, they should file for additional compensation. Okay. Survivor's pension. This is like the veteran's pension, but only for survivors. They also have a mapper. Okay, they can only make so much money. I can almost tell you so. Okay, if they basically are receiving Social Security, the Social Security amount is going to push them out of the range required required for them to receive it, just like veterans pension. And whatever that is, they're going to get the difference. Veteran entered active duty before 80 and served during this time frame right here. Once again, need to have covered a period of work they didn't have to be in it. So whatever we have listed for the veteran for pension is the same for the survivor one. So we're going to get into the meat of this real quick. Family income, currently $1,079.25 a month, $14,753 per month. So if the survivor has more money than that, and they can't drive that mapper up based off of out-of-pocket expenses for which they are not reimbursed for medically, then it'll be hard to pay. Remember, talk about pension is done for humanitarian purposes. Most of that has nothing to do with service. Okay? You have to be eligible for this benefit. This is a little different than DIC. Once you remarry, pension's out of play. It's done. Okay?
That's for the pension, right?
That's for pension.
Not the
Not the
compensation.
DIC, no.
Okay, just asking.
Yes. Okay, once you remarry, Joe or James will have to take care of that person from that point forward. Okay? Same thing with children. But wartime periods, remember we talked about previous wartime periods? The same thing applies. So this is going to be just like the veterans pension, with the exception of the mapper numbers right there. It's all humanitarian. It's based off of income and a need. It is not based off of anything that has to do with service. They could dive in anything. If their income is here, based off of the mapper, and they get this amount right here as far as income, they only get the part that's in the middle. It's not the most glorious way to go for dealing with a survivor, but it's better than nothing. It is better than nothing. And if they really, really are hurting for money, you tell them they're only going to get $400. If you are really, really in a needy situation and living down there at the poverty level, $400 is a whole bunch of money. Okay? You apply the same way that we basically apply, okay, for the DIC. The only thing is, all of the claims except for former prisoners of war, all of those claims will all be adjudicated in Minnesota. Okay, they have a team set aside because they want to try and expedite and get some money into the survivors' hands as soon as possible before cars get repossessed, homes go into foreclosure. For most veterans, when you shut down or their income stop, you have pretty much shut off the cash flows of that family. Not all of them, but most of them. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, another question. So, because I know it's obviously a pension, so it's based off income. So if the child's under 18, does it then go off of the parent's income?
Yes, it can, but be careful with that because when they talk about monthly income, they're talking about the household. That's another thing that people don't get because we have survivors that will come in and say, I'm making this amount of money right here, and they're reported. I'm find out later on that the child had more. So anyone that's living in that household, they're going to count all of their money against it.
Got it.
Okay?
Well, something for students that are 18 and over who may be actively enrolled in college.
For pension.
Yeah, correct. Because
Yes, as long as they're in the 18 to 23 and they're still in school. They don't have to even be in college. Most of you, if you deal with children, I have a son that was born in November. And he started school in Germany and they actually made him stay back. Okay. A whole year or start school late by 1 year, simply because his date was like 11 days before they considered, so they could stay back, they could fail school and decide that basically they're gonna go back because they want their high school diploma. Okay? So it doesn't have to be college, they can be over 18 and still be in high school. Okay? As long as we can basically provide the evidence that the child is still in school, then they'll meet that requirement.
So the girls need post secondary education,
Yep.
grade schools.
Absolutely, they just need to be enrolled in school. No more questions? I thank you all for your time. My phone number was on the first slide. I asked you to write it down. Call the service center, has to speak to that. I have 7 employees, and they will be more than